beer is a multiple faceted, wonderful thing. We age beers for different things: 8 months, years, 3 years, 12 months. Like, every beer is kind of different. I would say that for us personally, aging beer is as long as it needs.
Correct.
Like, we'll go, hey, we put a beer in a barrel today, and we hope that within 10 months it's going to be released on this date. And now there's a road that goes from A to B, and that road is on a map, A to B. If you look at a map closer, there's all these other roads that pop up on there and other ways you can get to the same place. So as you're driving a path, it then opens up another avenue. It may change directions on you. You may have to change, blend, do something you have to do to keep that barrel kind of progressing in a certain way. At the end, I mean, you may not get to be on time for the grandma's birthday, but you'll be there at some point.
You made it. Yeah,
it just may be earlier or a little bit later.
It does pose a interesting problem for distribution, because I think especially over the past 10 years or so, there's been such a drive and a focus on fresh is always better, that when you are a wild brewery, I mean, when I look for beers from well-known wild breweries, I'm looking for something that has, a couple months, if not years on it, just because I know that the quality of that product is probably going to be either at its peak or approaching its peak pretty well. So, I mean, when we send out a beer that may, on the keg collar or on the bottle, may say from 9 to 12 months ago, depending on the beer, that might be peak drinking time for that specific style, which I think is kind of the ongoing education process that we have to have with the consumer.
Absolutely.
That, we are releasing the beer when we think that it's approaching that or it's already reached that point. And it can, age for a little bit longer. It can age, it can be ready to drink right now. It's very similar to like Imperial Stouts, which, people have been aging, or barley wines, strong ales, that people have aged for months and months, if not years. But it's just a different path that it kind of goes along, kind of echo what Sean was saying.
The last thing Nate's talking about is conditioning. And, all our wild products, all our bottled product, kegs even, are living beers, we call them. It's a third fermentation. It's something I fell in love with in Europe. They actually have on their bottles, they say third fermentation in bottle. And when I would read that, I was just like, that's what this is about. There's actually a fermentation happening inside of the package element that as brewers we should be pushing towards, we should be cognizant of, we should be focusing on. So as we put a beer into a package, like, we're thinking that as we have designed a beer and a product, barrel aging, it's its own animal. It really is its own animal. And then we put it into a package, then it's like, we expect this thing to be ready in 3 months. We expect this one to be ready in 6 months. This beer at first taste, we're like, all right, this one could take a year, and we have to push an actual launch for a year, and it's happened. Just because that third respect for living beer inside of a package.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I don't know, especially with our Slayer program, talking about aging beers. Sean started the Slayer program 5 years ago, and it's been blending old and new beer for the last 5 years. Anytime you drink any of the core saisons, you get a Rumblefish, a Rustic, Brand New Eyes, you were drinking some very well-aged product right there.
And I mean, the blending process is always really cool as well. I mean, I always think of the Lovebird series. Like, the first beer had, I think, 6 barrels in it.
It did.
2 still one of my favorite variations of that we put out. I think we had one with as little as maybe 4, and then one with as many as 9, if I remember correctly.
It was pretty big.
So, I mean, just kind of like, I think each direction has kind of gone a little bit differently, either focusing more on the farmhouse aspect of it, or, the balance aspect of everything. And,
sour aspect.
Yeah, I mean, Lovebirds 3, for instance, I mean, that was a tale of 2 beers where it started off at one point, and by the, 9 months after we release it. I mean, it's drinking almost like wine right now. It's a good, balanced aged beer for sure.
And I would say as creators, that's what we try to do, is we try to create a balanced product all the time. And in a wild environment, especially an environment that you're taking multiple pieces. So in our wild brewery, our meat and potatoes is our 10-barrel foeder open fermenter project. And then we have our spice racked, which is our barrels and other side things that we do. So we have our meat and potato program, and then we sprinkle spices on top of it. We put them all together, and then we taste them. Everything feels fine. We put it into a package. 2 weeks later, we taste it just to see where we're at.
Indeed.
And sometimes it's just going to take its own will. It's going to take its own direction. Once again, we're going to the same spot. It's just made its little path a little different. Adds a little element to it. And I think that's the fun part about working on the wild side here, is that we respect Brett. We always say that, like,
Trust
in
in
the
Brett.
Brett.